live, even though they were in the shadow of Johns Hopkins Hospital. They're completely poor, completely uneducated. Nobody had ever gone to school. Nobody had ever worked. And I think it's really insulting to say that they're living in dire poverty because they don't have the right mental attitude. Their circumstances were terrible.
I agree with you. I wanted to hear you say it because it was one of the things in The Secret that really got me angry.
It's like blaming the afflicted. The guy in the wheel, say, if you just got up and ran, you would be able to get along better. So I can't run. My legs were blown off in the war. I'm not able to run. That's why I'm in the wheelchair. And the idea of blaming the poor and blaming the afflicted for their affliction, I think, is insulting, inappropriate.
You shared quite intimately about getting colon cancer and surviving it and actually choosing to have surgery and dealing with it. You seemed like you were able to easily transcend that situation that may have killed other people. I wondered if you had anything to say about that beyond what you wrote in the book.
Well, colon cancer is easily treatable with a permanent colostomy. At the time that was coming up for me, it's now 25 years ago, I was aware from the medical literature that some people don't want a colostomy. They would rather die than have that done, and indeed they get to die pretty quickly. But my life experience is that having a colostomy and a colostomy bag does not interfere with my life in any way. Can go swimming, can be a lover, can have girlfriends, travel around the world. Having a colostomy in no way interferes with my life activity. There are even football players who have had colostomies. So it's an idea that gets a bad rap in literature, but with modern medicine, it in no way interferes with the person's life and gives them a life instead of dying. I was aware that people say, oh no, I would never do that, that doesn't seem attractive, and then they get to die. That was not my choice.
Now, you had other health issues after that later, right?
Yes, I have.
And how are you doing?
I'm just fine. I'm 77 years old. I've just finished a book called The Reality of ESP that'll come out next year with Quest Books. We can talk about that. I'm calling that a physicist's proof of psychic abilities. There are a lot of people interested in parapsychology who have spent their whole life doing ESP research who still don't believe in it. So this is sort of a tougher book arguing for the reality of psychic ability, and I've just finished that.
I can't wait to read that book. You were very close with Bobby Fischer.
Oh, we were friends. I mean, he was my wife's brother, so when I lived in New York and he was 15, I saw a lot of Bobby. After that, he was traveling all over the world playing chess. I didn't see him very much.
You had spent a few pages in your book about what happened to him, and it obviously upset you enough to get,
people always took advantage of him, and that's what upset me. The people stole his money and took advantage of him, and then President Bush put him in jail for playing chess with Boris Spassky in Yugoslavia. There was a trade embargo, and the only thing that the U.S. did pertaining to that whole trade embargo was to try and put Bobby Fischer in jail. That was President Bush's big accomplishment, and he was in a Japanese prison for 8 months. They took the greatest chess player in the world and put him in prison for 8 months for playing chess in Yugoslavia, and I consider that really obscene. It was a terrible thing to have done.
And you did a lot to get him help, didn't you?
Yes. A number of other people eventually interested the Icelandic government to give Bobby citizenship, and he was able to get out of jail in Japan. It was reprehensible that the Japanese played ball with the Americans. Bobby had been living with his girlfriend in Japan, and the Japanese government imprisoned him at the request of George W. Bush. With the connivance of the Japanese, George Bush put the greatest chess player in the world in prison for 8 months for having played chess in Yugoslavia 12 years before. And I consider that just a terrible thing to have done.
I wanted to mention it because it was obviously very important to you.
So I turn over all the stones that tell you where all the bodies are buried. It's a pretty forthcoming biography.
It really is. I think it's pretty courageous.
And we haven't even gotten to sex on the astral plane. We'll give yours. There's something to look forward to.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking with, learning from, and listening to Russell Targ. We have been talking about his recent book, Memoirs of a Blind Biker, Do You See What I See, Lasers and Love, ESP and the CIA, and the Meaning of Life. You can buy his books and connect with him by going to espresearch.com. And Russell, we hope to have you back again. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to chat with you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.